Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse, host of the Bible Forum right here on the BibleForum.net. We meet every Sunday night between 8 and 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we miss seeing you. We're here on the 4th of July. Actually, it's the 5th of July, but we're celebrating the 4th of July. And I wanted to share with you the story of the founders' religion. Were they deists? Were they pagan? What were they? Maybe they're Presbyterians. I don't know what they were. But today in the public discourse, we hear a lot of stories. A Pew Research study indicates 20% of the population of these United States are anti-God in one way or another. They're atheists, or they're agnostics, or they just don't care. 38% of Harvard graduates are in this category. If other colleges and universities have a similar statistic, and it's reasonable to think that they might, what does this mean for our country down the road? The founders of this country may not have been Christians, as we understand the term, but they did believe in God, and they definitely understood His principles of life and living. The critics constantly tell us how men like Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson dispel that claim. Ben Franklin was admittedly a rascal, especially in his later years, by all accounts. However, he was raised on the New England Primer, a divine catechism, and wrote his own epitaph, which reads, "The body of Benjamin Franklin, printer, like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out, stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here, food for worms. But the work shall not be lost, for it will, as he believed, appear once more in a new and more elegant edition, revised and corrected by the author." End of quote. You see, Franklin, like Jefferson, seemed on the outside to be a deist. He believed in God, and believed in a God more fervently than many Christians you know. The Jefferson Bible has given rise to the idea that Thomas Jefferson was also a deist, probably in the same way that Benjamin Franklin was. When you look at that Bible, you realize that there were passages cut out. And these passages seem to prove a point. Many of them had to do with the miracles that Jesus performed. And so here's Jefferson pulling out of his Bible all of the things, or any of the things, that seem to point to a God who has this kind of power. We're told that he did not believe in the miraculous parts. And yet the Jefferson Bible is not the Bible with the parts cut out. Did you know that? There are about 5 of them, by the way. Jefferson got 5 Bibles, and he cut parts out of each one. And all of those parts were then pasted into a volume called the Jefferson Bible. You can get a copy of it. You can go to www.christianbook.com and look for the Jefferson Bible. You can buy one. Jefferson wanted to create a chronological and concise story of Jesus. And he did it by cutting out bits and pieces and then putting them all together in a more chronological order. In a letter to his daughter upon publication, he explained his position. He writes that he is a Christian in the only way it matters, sincerely attached to the doctrines of Christ. And he was saying that in context with the idea that every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming down the pike had some doctrine that they held out and said, this is the real truth. And somebody else says, and you know what? I'm tired of it. I'm a Christian in the only way that it really matters, attached to the doctrines of Christ. The founding documents, as well as personal letters, tell a story of a man who is steeped in biblical principle and doctrine, committed to applying it to life and to government more than you are, perhaps more than I am. These men were not seeking to create a Christian nation. They sought, and the writings bear it out, a pluralistic nation of people, a nation dedicated to the universal principles of equality in social affairs, in business affairs, in government affairs, and in public affairs. The Declaration of Independence spells out their dedication to these principles of life, not in our current culture of death, but in liberty, not in the freedom to do as you please, and in the pursuit of happiness as we tend to define and describe it. Their idea of the pursuit of happiness was the freedom to pursue, not a guarantee of acquiring, but the freedom to pursue all that was necessary for a person to live a productive and satisfying life. Not our contemporary view of being happy all the time. Words only mean what they meant to the person who wrote them. And they had a context, and it wasn't a 21st century context. Greed, license, debauchery, drugs, sex, indolence, selfishness do not contribute to happiness. You never saw a happy drunk. Well, when they were drunk. But when they were sober, they weren't happy. You never saw a drunk drug addict. These people are not happy people. This is the language of the revolution, not a rebellion. It is steeped in biblical terminology and principles drawn from both the doctrines and commandments handed down from on high. These men were students of history, students of theology. These men understood that without God, societies drift into moral, financial, social, political, legal, and economic chaos. Despots arise from all quarters if there are not enough centered citizens to counter them. We have despots in our churches. We're learning in our new decadent social environment just how all of this works. We are now governed by the opinions of the 4%. 4% of the population is driving the moral bus. Outrage passes for legitimate disagreement. Street demonstrations overwhelm the law and generally produce the desired result. The person with the best or the most corrupt lawyer is the one who seems to win. Whether you're right doesn't matter anymore. The founders would not have tolerated same-sex marriages. They would have not tolerated no-fault divorce. They wouldn't have tolerated abortion on demand or vulgar language in public discourse or public drunkenness or drug addiction. They would not have tolerated physician-assisted suicide, government welfare, Social Security, and any other social disgrace. These men were focused on doing what was necessary to make people productive, and none of those things do it. Because they were, for the most part, Christian in their orientation. They wanted everyone in America to be a Christian. No, they didn't. That was not the point. They wanted everybody to abide by biblical principle, to have that inculcated into their system and into their family life and into their business life, because these things bring productivity. They strengthen societies, they strengthen families, They strengthen the institution of marriage. They protect children. They protect individuals and their wealth and the ability to get it. No society that has embraced any of these things that I just mentioned has ever survived. And there's a reason for that. They are all destructive of society. It is a vile and unjust government that seeks to glorify all that's immoral and all that's destructive. It's a government which creates by deliberate action or simply by default the context in which we live and raise our children. And it is good people who stand by and let it happen. 30% of the colonists were in favor of the revolution. It is famously said, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And have you ever noticed? In the times when government is seeking to do more for poor people, rich people get richer, and the number of poor expands. In the times when the economy is weak, rich people get richer, and the middle class gets poorer. In the times when war dominates our lives, rich people get richer, and everyone else goes to fight. In the times of deepest distress, Christians grow stronger, and everyone else just grows more fearful. Is there a lesson in here somewhere? I think the founders understood that lesson, and I don't think that we do. If we did, we wouldn't be passing the laws that we are currently passing. We wouldn't be spending our time and our wealth in the way that we are. And we wouldn't be destroying every productive institution in our culture.